name is Michael Furman, and I'm the project manager for Destination Erie Regional Vision. And on behalf of this organization, I'd like to welcome you to our Trends and Conditions Forum. Since you're all gathered here, chances are that you're from Erie County. And you care deeply about what happens to this region. And there's good news. You're not alone. All of us who live in this county have things that we love about this region. Whether they are its people, its history, its places, the things we love about this area are the things that keep us here, the things that make this region special and a great place to live. We all want to see these things that we love about our area protected, just as we would like to see these challenges facing our region addressed and put behind us. Destination Erie, a regional vision, is focused on helping us do just this. Our goal is to create a dynamic region that will improve the quality of life, connect our communities, welcome diversity, restore and protect our natural resources, and create a competitive economic framework that fuels the vitality of our region. Destination Erie Consortium members come from across 5 regions. They are Erie, Crawford and Warren County, Chautauqua County in New York, and Ashtabula County in Ohio. They represent geographically, economically, socially, racially, politically diverse communities. Together, we are studying how Erie County uses land and developing ideas about how we can use it more wisely so that it is to the greatest benefit of our economy and our quality of life, now and in the future. We are trying to think things through on how we can become better stewards of our natural resources without sacrificing the things that have made our region a great place to live, to come home to, and to raise a family. This Trends and Conditions report is our first major step in this direction. It is a compilation of research about the region that will allow us to take a collective look at what we are doing as a region, but more importantly, where we're going. In preparation for launching a regional conversation about sustainability and land use, Destination Erie assembled countless policy plans and planning initiative documents from across the county. And to the best of our knowledge, this is one of the very first times these plans from different parts of our county have been brought together in one place. So, what is our Trends and Conditions report? With this presentation this afternoon, Destination Erie is launching a countywide conversation about how our region's future looks. We are not, however, tied to one particular course of action. We want to hear from you about your vision and our region, and then work together to transform the feedback we receive into a workable plan for our communities. The Trends and Conditions report is a foundation upon which we will build an even broader base of knowledge about our region, a place where we can stand while we have a conversation, a starting point for an effort that will take Erie County and the region where we want it to go. While Destination Erie has organized this report and will continue to manage it, going forward, it will belong to all of us. We need you. We need your friends. We need your family. Anyone you know who cares about this region and how to contribute to make it a better place to live. How you experience it, what makes it special, and what it needs. We need you to put this report to good use. Today is the beginning, not an end. It is a work in progress. The development of the Trends and Conditions report, which you're about to hear, has been informed by the beginning as a collaborative network. This collaboration highlights many experts, which you're about to hear from, and perspectives from across the tri-state region. This will continue as we begin our community engagement over the next phase of the journey, and will be one of the most important outcomes of our work. Here to illuminate the findings of the report is a team of experts that spent the last 5 months interviewing many of you in this very auditorium and mining regional data. So would you please welcome to the lectern Principal Partner from WRT, David Rouse. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Boy, this is a great space. There's always got to be somebody up in the peanut gallery, right? We're going to do actually, let me go to the next slide here, see if this works. We have a lot to get through in the next hour or so, you know, we're going to go through a lot of material very fast, and part of what we actually want to do in the first half, we're going to, as Michael said, zero in on the existing conditions and trends. There is a report, a full report that's in preparation, being finalized. A draft will be ready in about a week or two, and it's going to be circulated. Ahead of that, what we want to do is, because we can't get into all the detail, hit on some of the overviews, the highlights of that, and that's what we'll be doing for the first half. In particular, I think you have a handout that you received. I only got black and white, but you have a nice color. And what that tries to do is get kind of high level and strategic, because we do need to be strategic, in terms of a report card about how the county and the larger region are doing in these various topics that are being covered by the plan. So where we're headed, which will lead towards the direction for what do we do about it? How do we become what we want this county and this region to be in the future? And that's going to be the second part of the presentation. You can see, first I'm going to do a quick overview. Then I'm going to share actually the duty, and let me introduce to my immediate left, Rob Kearns, project manager from WRT, a couple of our representatives of our consultant team, Jenny Easton from Mullen & Lonergan, dealing with housing, Ron Kelly from Center for Research and Economic Competitiveness, obviously they're dealing with the economy. Jim Curry is also here, who many of you know, who's been working on that. So we're going to give you that overview. Then Rob's going to turn on and talk about, well, what in terms of the issues, what are the things that are driving what we need to deal with and the challenges as a region. So that's going to be number 4, looking at drivers, key drivers that come out of this information. At that point, we're going to put you at work with keypads, and I hope that the range of them reaches all the way up to that, but we will have you doing a little voting and prioritization exercise. So that's quickly talking through what we're going to go through for the next hour or so. We'll pause a few times to let people ask questions or raise some issues as appropriate, but we do want to keep moving. First of all, and most of you, and maybe all of you, have seen some of these slides before, so this is really a refresher. First slide is the study area for Destination Area Regional Vision, and Michael mentioned, particularly for the economic and workforce component, it reaches 5 counties in 3 states, Erie County, Ashtabula, Crawford, Warren, and Chautauqua. For most of it, though, the focus and the study area for the grant purposes is Erie County. So you'll hear us talking about Erie County as a region, but for the economy as a larger region we're really looking at. Here's the process that we're going through. It's a 3-phase process, 3 years. We are at the end of phase 1, or near the end of phase 1, looking at what's going on in the region, what those conditions and trends are. That's leading up to this report that will be available in draft form certainly before the end of the year. We're polishing it up now, which is going to lead to the next phase, really critical over 2013. What do we want to be as a region strategically? And then how do we get there? What's the action? What are the plans that are going to and actions that are going to be put in place? And Rob will talk a little bit at the end about the next steps in terms of phase 2 in the next few months moving forward. I'm not going to dwell on this diagram, but suffice to say, how many of you are on a specific work group as part of this? I think many of you are. And if you are, you will see that work group up there. It's organized topically in terms of 5 work groups: transportation and infrastructure, environment, housing and neighborhoods, economy and workforce, and community facilities, which is the sequence we're going to go through the existing conditions and trends information. There is also a task force that's dealing with community engagement. Just did want to remind us, because we need to keep this in mind, this is a grant that was received through HUD, Housing and Urban Development, Sustainable Regional Planning Grant. and these are sort of the overall directive that that grant program sets. So I think these are very much in sync with what folks are saying about what they'd like to see about the future of the region so far and what the issues are, but just put those up to remind us that there are 6 broad goals that they've established for the Sustainable Communities Partnership. So with that, I'll pause for a minute and we'll plunge right, or actually just a second, because we're going to plunge right into an overview of existing conditions and trends. I want to reiterate what we're going to give you is not going to be in-depth. It's going to be pretty high level just because we don't have a lot of time to get through it all. But there will be full documentation in terms of the report coming out moving forward. So there's a lot of data information behind these sort of this broad overview we're going to present. The way the report will be organized and the way we're going to do the presentation, there's sort of background information that particularly deals with demographic trends, the population and what's happening in it, and what's happening with land use and development in the county. And then there are what we're calling community systems. These are those work groups, the economy and workforce, housing and neighborhoods, etc. And a really important point is that we're going to go through this information separately. It's really important to look at the interconnections and how these different things interact. And there are some common themes and parallels. And that's going to be part of what we're going to be working with you moving forward. Because when you can find those interconnections, ways you can leverage transportation, for example, to do something on the environmental front or the economic front, or vice versa, that's going to be the most effective plan. So we will be looking at the interconnections, but for now we're going to go through these one at a time, just sort of systematically to give you sort of a high-level overview. And what we're going to do is after we get through a couple of each one, we'll just pause for a minute and take a couple of questions or two, comments, just because we don't want to be just talking here. We do want to have kind of a conversation. And of course, as Michael is going to be saying, there'll be opportunities to follow up on this in the future. So looking at demographic trends in terms of population, you had some nice population growth. Again, this is at county of Erie now. This is not the 5 counties. Just think of this in terms of the county of Erie. There was growth from 1960 to 1980, but basically it's been level and with a slight few hundred decline actually between 2000 and 2010. So the current population of the county, you can see, or at least according to 2010 census, was around 280,000. And what was interesting, if you bear with me for a minute, in terms of the figures, what this represents is actual growth, population growth in certain parts of the county. Summit Township, for example, 19.42% growth, Harbor Creek 13.55%, Canal 9.77%, where some of the boroughs, Edinburgh, Elgin, Wesley boroughs, there was a 7% decline. The city of Erie and 1.8% decline. So there's flat population, but that's masking some different things that are happening across the across the county in terms of population. And of course, we know what the manufacturing loss and economic changes basically did to changing sort of that population trend over time. It's also related to something that's been happening across the country in terms of generally smaller household size. I'll get to that maybe in the next slide, actually. In terms of the breakdown of the population, the largest segment of the population, actually, if you look at it, is in the 15 to 24 age group, and I wonder if that's related something to maybe your university, your college population as well. But you do have an aging population. This is not uncommon in terms of the baby boomers who are actually 45 to 64, and then the older generations are growing. And actually, I looked at some of the population figures from 2000 to 2010, and some of this is called out in the report. Your young population, under 18, is actually declining by 7 or 8%. So there is an aging going on. The majority of the population, I believe, over 80%, is identified as white, but the Hispanic, African American communities are growing, and new immigrants are coming in. So there's some changes and shifting happening in terms of the ethnic component of your populations. Just to shift gears in terms of land use and development, this map shows the overall land use in the county, and the 2 largest components of land use. Forest is considered a land use. It's over 40, I believe 43%. The next is agriculture, 36%. This is a rural county. And this plan is about the entire county, and it's predominantly rural, actually, even though we are here and within sort of the urban, what I will call the urban core, which is mainly that yellow area in the center around the city of Erie, Mill Creek, and the other townships where you see most of the residential development, which is yellow, and the commercial is red as well. So land use and development, that's sort of the existing pattern. This actually goes back to 2005. There are some changes occurring in that. You may have seen this map before. We've shown it, but we'd like to show this map. This is from actually Erie County's 2003 comprehensive plan, in which an exercise was done. They worked with municipalities that had zoning and growth areas designated and sewer service areas, and they designated, you can see sort of in a kind of a brownish color, is what are called designated growth areas. This is sort of where the zoning and the water and sewer service is lined up to support growth, which is an important issue, and then potential future growth areas in yellow. And then in sort of the, so I see it as grayish, is what are called rural resource areas, or in green conservation areas which remain predominantly in those rural uses. So there was a general framework that was set in that comprehensive plan by the county, but we're revisiting and relooking at that through this process. So that's a quick overview of land use and development. I'm going to turn it over to Ron Kelly, who's going to talk really the economy and economic conditions that's emerged as critical through this whole process. And CREC and Jim and others have been doing a lot of work on this, and Ron's going to give you a little bit of overview of that. Ending up in the first part of the regional report card, after which we'll pause and take a few questions on everything so far.
All right, thanks. Thanks, David. So for the purposes of the economy and workforce group, the analysis has been done at the 5-county level. So it's an analysis for Erie County, Warren County, Crawford County in Pennsylvania, Chautauqua County in New York, and Ashtabula County in Ohio. So, for many reasons, the sort of borders of those counties matter, but in terms of economic dynamism, those counties don't matter quite as much. Workers cross those borders in order to go to work. Supply chains for major corporations exist across those borders as well. So the analysis is done at the 5-county level. It would be impossible for us to talk about the economy for the region without talking about manufacturing, because it's a very important component of the economy for all 5 counties. There are certain types of manufacturing here that have really high specializations. We use a methodology called the location quotient in order to analyze those industries. And if you have sort of the same level as what can be expected nationally, your location quotient would be 1. There are certain types of manufacturing here where location quotients are 5 to 8, which means that the region has 5 to 8 times what could be expected nationally in employment in that type of manufacturing. So even though manufacturing is projected to continue to decline, manufacturing will continue to be very important here, particularly in those areas where there's specialization. And it's also important because those jobs tend to be some of the more high-wage positions within the region. So in the report, we've identified 12 different industry clusters, which are some manufacturing, some service-based, that are sort of core to the region. Some emerging industry clusters include advanced business services, local shipping and warehousing, and chemical manufacturing. And so those are some of the areas where we see growth potential going forward. We also analyze what we call the visitor accommodations cluster, which includes both hotels, restaurants, that sort of thing, the sort of support services for visitors coming into the region, because there's been growth there. And healthcare continues to also be a very important part of the economy here, where there's growth anticipated both sort of on high-end healthcare jobs, including physicians and that sort of thing, as well as on the lower skill end, which would be not as high-wage positions. So unemployment locally has remained somewhat steady. Sort of the good news about unemployment is that the Great Recession didn't really hit as hard here as it did in other parts of the country. Throughout the recession, the unemployment rate within the region actually remained lower than what it was nationally. So the sort of the impact of the recession here was definitely felt, but it wasn't necessarily felt as strongly as it was in other parts of the country. You see here a chart that shows the unemployment rate in different counties, and you'll see that the trend is sort of similar, but the actual rate varies per county within the region. And it seems as though the recession actually hit Chautauqua County hardest of the 5 counties within the region. That's not to say that the unemployment is felt consistently. The last bullet point here does indicate that certain minority groups within the region have felt unemployment more strongly than others. In terms of labor force within the region, there's a much higher percentage of unskilled workers within the region than what is seen nationally. As a result of that, average wages tend to be lower, and there's a sort of a gap in terms of the high-skilled positions that comes along with that. So there's fewer high-skilled workers available here, and therefore there are fewer high-skilled sort of jobs. So when we look at job growth, at the regional level, since 2001, we've lost about 13,000 jobs. And the chart that we have here is actually projections for job growth going forward. And I know it's pretty small. You might not be able to see some of those labels, but what's expected to grow in terms of employment is in the healthcare field, personal care, and food preparation. If you look at the bottom, which is the bottom circle indicates jobs are expected to be losses, you'll see that there's an expected loss in production, which would be manufacturing jobs. And again, even though we're expecting that there will be fewer manufacturing jobs, that does not mean that manufacturing will not continue to be an important part of the economy. Unfortunately, we've also done this analysis where we indicate sort of average wages for these individual groups. And unfortunately, it looks as though the types of jobs that are projected to grow are more along the lines of the type of jobs that have a lower wage. And a lot of the jobs that are expected to decline are those that currently have higher wages within the region. And it's important to point out that even though it's only projected that there will be a net increase of 400 jobs between 2012 and 2017, that doesn't mean that there's only going to be 400 job opportunities. Those are net new jobs, so those are new jobs created. So there's going to be a lot of churn within the economy, so there's going to be a lot of opportunities for jobs in terms of people entering the labor force, but the sort of projection is that there's only going to be 400 net new jobs. So in terms of innovation capacity, the ability of the region to innovate in terms of high-tech employment, the good news is that from 2000 to 2010, the high-tech employment in the region grew at a faster pace than the nation. The bad news is that it was growing from a very small point, and so it still has a long ways to go, and so in order to catch up with the level of employment that is sort of normal at the national level. But it's good that it's growing, and we have done analysis of what we call stage 2 companies, which are companies that have 10 to 99 employees and have receipts of over $1 million a year. So these are the firms that are most likely to innovate and sort of increase their employment levels at a higher percentage. And the Erie region has demonstrated a strong capacity to be able to grow those sorts of companies. So there's the sort of infrastructure is here for innovation, the sort of infrastructure that's necessary to create the sort of businesses that would innovate and be able to increase employment are definitely here. And because you see that the rate of high-tech employment has been growing substantially, you're starting to see some of that proof that the sort of core is there for this to continue to grow. And so in terms of the report card, When we look at employment and the economic structure, we see it as being steady and improving. We know that certain areas of the economy are going to decline, and there are other areas of the economy that are on the upswing as well. So it's sort of finding that right balance. Unemployment here is lower than the national level, and so that's indicated as steady as well. There are some concerns in terms of the skill levels of the labor force, and so that's indicated here as something that needs improvement. That's particularly important because a lot of the job growth that's expected within the next several years are positions that are in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so these are going to be high-skilled positions, and the reality is that the skill level isn't sort of there yet. So in order to be prepared for the jobs of the future, skill levels will have to increase. And sort of just following up again on the innovation capacity issue, a lot of the sort of core infrastructure that's necessary to have an innovative economy is already here. That's really the good news. It's sort of how to implement it in a way that is sort of driving at what's next in the economy is sort of going to be the ultimate question, I think, for how we go forward. And with that, I'll, I guess we're pausing for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Is this thing working? Yeah, what we thought we'd do now is just sort of pause and take any questions, comments for a couple minutes. If anyone has anything they want to bring up or raise or ask.
Yes, if you guys have any questions, please wait for a microphone so that everyone can hear it and get on video too.
Yeah, we've got one up here.
How do you know manufacturing jobs will shrink?
So the question was, how do we know manufacturing jobs will shrink? So what we've used in the report are employment projections from the economists at Economic Modeling Specialists, Inc. So they analyze the national economy, and so they come up with these projections. And so it's, they're projecting that manufacturing jobs will decrease. The historical trend has been that manufacturing jobs have decreased. That, you can't always necessarily predict the future, but their complex economic model is what we're using in order to sort of predict the economic forecast.
And one of the interesting, I'm not an economist, but one of the interesting phenomena that's happening, even though the jobs are decreasing, doesn't mean manufacturing is necessarily decreasing, becoming more productive, right?
That's right, that's right. And so I would say that the manufacturing jobs that we'll see going forward are not the manufacturing jobs that we've seen over the past several decades. Manufacturing is becoming more technology intensive, and so the type of workers that they're looking for are actually changing. And so in that process, they don't need as many workers typically. They're looking for more high-skilled workers.
Can you qualify the statement that we have good infrastructure by which to grow the high-tech sector? Could you give us some of the things underlying when you say that?
Sure. So there are universities here that have programs that are turning out graduates in engineering and math that could be catalyzed in order to help build that. And we've seen that a lot of the firms locally that are in those industries, they are also experiencing growth. And so it's really trying to find those linkages in order to make it so graduates will be able to stay in the area,